Hey friends, welcome back to She's At It Again. And of all the things I've looked forward to sharing with you, it's got to be this recipe. This is the best. This is the one I probably make more often than anything else. And these are called honey rolls. These are not only the best rolls, best yeast rolls I've ever had. They're apparently the best ones anybody else has ever had that comes to my house because everybody wants to know how to make them. Although I don't know how many people actually follow through on that. But these are actually the basis of so many good things. So hopefully this is one of just a few in a series of what all to make with honey rolls. I'm probably not going to name it that because that sounds a little elementary. But these are the basis for so many good things. So we're going to start out by measuring out a cup of milk. Now this is my cup. It has measurements on the inside as well as the outside. I just love this little pot, this little stainless steel pot. And I found this at a thrift store one day. I think I've told you that before. But we're going to put 1 cup of milk in here, right to the line. And we're going to heat this up on the stove top. Now if you have a thermometer that is for liquid, like a cooking thermometer, of course, by all means use that. I only normally do this because I've been making these rolls for probably at least 15 years now, and I tend to just kind of stick my finger in it, and if it's like bathtub, really good warm water, that's the temperature that this should be. So we're going to put this on the stovetop, just turn on low and let it heat up low and slow while we get our other stuff together. I only turn the burner on about 3, so we'll put our milk back in the fridge because this is the last time we'll use that. But I'm going to show you how I get set up with this because this goes in stages. So what we'll do is we'll put all our ingredients, our warm milk, our other ingredients in the mixer and just use whatever stand mixer you have. If you don't have a stand mixer, do not fret. This can be done by hand. It's just very taxing. When I say taxing, you're going to work up some muscles doing this. Now, I've done it by hand before. It's not the funnest thing I've ever done, but it's not a deal breaker. So the first thing I want to share with you is the fact that my mixer is, I want to say it's about 18 years old. We had a house fire about 18 years ago and I had to replace the KitchenAid mixer that I had. So this is the one that got replaced with, and I've had it ever since. And trust me when I say I use this thing a lot. But when I walk out of a room and leave it going, it shimmies enough to where I'm scared it's going to fall off the countertop. I went out in the sunroom one time to do something, left the mixer running, and I probably wasn't gone for, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes or so. Maybe I let the dogs out in the backyard and I set a timer in my pocket. I came back in and literally this mixer was sitting on the edge of this counter, and had I waited probably 30 more seconds, it would have been in the floor, and not only would it have taken a chunk out of the wood floor, but it would probably messed up my mixer too. I don't know which one I would have been more sad about, but this mixer does shimmy a little bit. If anybody knows anything about how to keep that from happening, feel free to let me know in the comments. So here's my remedy for that. I am a fixer of all things. If there's a problem with something, I am going to figure out how to remedy it. So what I do is I take some of this, this mesh sheeting stuff you buy in the kitchen section of a big store, and it has kind of a grip to it. I think it's really considered shelf liner, so near the contact paper shelf liner. So I just cut a piece of this out, I put it on the countertop, and I take one of my big sheet pans. You can tell this has been used and used, but I normally use parchment on mine, so I'm not too worried about the finish of it. And I set this on that piece of tacky paper, not tacky paper, but tacky fabric stuff. And it's not even really fabric, I don't know what it is, but that pan would be hard pressed to move. It's pretty much stuck there. So this is how I set up my station to make my rolls, because like I said, I was saying a while ago, we're going to heat up our milk, put our ingredients in the bowl, let the yeast get foamy and active so we'll know it's really good. And I'm not afraid that mine's not good because I use it too fast. It doesn't have a chance to go bad. But we're going to let that activate. Then we're going to mix it up for about 5 minutes. We'll turn it off to rest for about 5 minutes. We'll turn it back on and let this mixer run for 40 minutes. Now I know that sounds like a long time, but trust me when I say that the longer you mix it, it's not a matter of just continually mixing it for the sake of getting everything mixed. You're working up that gluten, which is a protein, and it's activated when the gluten in the flour hits a liquid, liquid, and it activates that gluten, and it just starts getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. Think of taking a string and wrapping it around your hand, and if you just put one string on there, you could easily slip your finger through there and snap it, broken. But if you take and wrap it and wrap it and wrap it and wrap it, it's going to be strong enough to where you not only cannot break it with your finger, you probably can't get it off your hand till you start unwinding it. We want that gluten to be so strong because that's what makes these rolls super stretchy and puffy and makes those little kind of balloons, if you will, to hold all that air that's being produced from the yeast. So those little pockets of air, what's going to make these rolls nice and fluffy and just be such a good texture. You're just going to surprise yourself. I just know you are. So again, we're just waiting for this milk to get heated up, and as soon as that gets heated up, we'll start the process. All right, our milk is just warm enough to where it feels like warm bath water. It's not even a hot bath water, it's just a warm bath water. All you want to do is cut the chill on that water. Now ideally, if you have a thermometer, I was saying this a while ago and then I lost track of it, but if you're measuring the temperature of this, you want to be at about 110 to 115 degrees would be the ideal temperature. So that's not super warm, but it's warm enough to where your yeast isn't just going to take forever to wake up and start getting activated. So let's pour our milk in there. And I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle the yeast on top of it. And we'll go with, let's see how much I usually normally put in here. Okay, that's what I thought. We'll go with about 2 to 2.5 teaspoons of yeast and put it directly on top of it. Don't allow it to stick to the side of the bowl, because if it's stuck to the side of the bowl, it doesn't have the warmth of that milk to activate it. Now, it's going to be activated with the sugars in the milk as well, but we're going to add honey to this as well, thus they are honey rolls. So we're just going to let this sit in here just a bit. I'll take this camera and show you what this looks like. So for right now, it's just dry. And if you want to kind of swish it around, we'll start getting bubbly in just a minute. In this cup, we have 1 egg. And in this measuring cup, we have 1/2 cup of olive oil. Just any neutral oil will be great, avocado oil or something like that. Try something that's a better choice as far as health-wise. Do not use, don't be tempted to use canola or vegetable oil or something like that, although it's going to give you a satisfactory result as far as taste. There's not going to be anything wrong with the taste, but the health benefits are not there like they are in an oil like even a safflower, if it's a good organic safflower oil, but avocado oil or olive oil. So I go ahead and use olive oil, 1/2 cup of olive oil, and 1/8 cup or 2 tablespoons of honey is what we're going for in this. If you aren't accustomed to baking a lot and you don't use your yeast a lot, make sure you get fresh yeast, or at least test it in some warm water before you begin. And the way you test it is just put it in that 110 to 115 temperature water, and you might add a little bit of sugar or honey to it and just sprinkle a few grains on the top, and they should activate. When they activate, you'll know. It's not like they're just going to sit there and look the same and you're looking at it going, it doesn't look any different to me. If it doesn't look any different to you, then it's not active. So what you want to do is make sure it's bubbly and doing something. You want it to be alive, or it's not going to make your bread rise. Mine's kind of getting active in there. I'm going to stir this because for some reason that honey just sticks to the bottom of the cup even though I put the oil in there first. This is the recipe I use for not only rolls of all shapes. I make regular rolls and I make crescent rolls, and I'm going to try to show you both of those today in this one recipe. But I also use these as hot dog buns for Pigs in the Blanket to bake the hot dogs in the oven, and talk about good. It's got a taste that rivals any hot dog any way you cook it, over a campfire, whatever. It's just so good because all the juices from that really good quality hot dog goes into the bread when you're baking it. It's phenomenal. I also use this for hamburger buns, sandwich buns like Sloppy Joes and things like that. So it's really, really a good basic bread recipe. All right, put our egg in there. We're also going to add to this 3.5 cups of just all-purpose flour. I'll start with my 1/2 cup so I won't overdo it. Then there's 1. 2. 3 cups of flour. And again, this is plain flour. Try to search for unbleached. Next better thing would be unbleached and organic, just because it doesn't have the pesticides and herbicides sprayed on the wheat, and that gets into your body. It doesn't disappear. We're also going to add salt to this. The sweetener in this, or the honey in this case, helps the bread to rise because the yeast feeds on the sugar. The salt in this tempers the rising so it doesn't just go crazy. If any of you have ever watched the episode of I Love Lucy back in the day when she and Ethel decide to make a bread, and she opens the oven and the bread just keeps coming out and it backs her up against the cabinet on the other side of the kitchen. I think about that every time somebody says, oh, I forgot to put the salt in the bread, and I'm like, oh dear, because that bread's going to go crazy and it's not going to have a lot of flavor to it. You're not going to like the taste of it if you don't put the salt in there. So on top of the flour, we're going to put 1.5 teaspoons of salt. And this is just pink Himalayan salt. And that is all of our ingredients right there. That's everything. We're going to put our dough hook on our mixer. Plug it in. And I have plug mold on both sides of my island over here. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I have 12 plugs on each side of my island. So yes, I'm a lucky girl and I don't take that for granted, but when your house burns and you get to redesign it and you cook a lot, you do what you can. Okay, we're going to turn this on and leave this going for about 5 minutes. I'll set my timer and we'll come back when that time period's done. Okay, the buzzer just went off on my timer, and so just the next step, gonna turn it off. We're gonna let that rest for 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and turn it back on. So we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. It's been at least 5 minutes because I think I set the timer for 5 minutes. Then I went across to my neighbor's house to help her with something, and I'm pretty sure the timer just pooped out and didn't keep going. But we're gonna turn our mixer back on. We're gonna keep it on for 40 minutes this time. Don't be tempted to go, 20's fine. Keep it on for 40 minutes. So make sure it's not gonna fall off your countertop. Walk out of the room. If you have to, set it on the floor, unless you have pets, because they will eat the dough out of this. But again, 40 minutes and then we'll come back. Okay, our dough has been going for 40 minutes. And I don't know if you can see this or not. You can see it on the lower camera. This tray even kind of started shimmying off the back of that thing. This drives me crazy. All right, let's unplug this. We're not going to need our mixer anymore for this. but I'm going to clean it off the dough hook and off the sides. It just sticks a little bit to the top. Sometimes at the end of mixing, I like to turn the mixer on high and it just starts slapping that dough around the side of the bowl and it cleans it out really nicely. This dough has so much oil in it that it really doesn't stick to your hands that much, even though it's not necessarily a stiff dough. It's kind of a wet dough, but for some reason it does, well, not for some reason, it's because it has a lot of oil in it. It doesn't stick to your hands and it does not stick to the counter. So to roll these out works beautifully because you don't have to add flour to your counter, or you know how the recipes always say, put on a liberally floured board or countertop. You don't have to with these. Now you'll have to clean it off with some alcohol or soap and water or vinegar or something like that when you're done, because it'll leave an oily residue on the countertop or board that you're working on, but it doesn't stick. These are kind of magical. Okay, we'll wash that. I want you to see what this looks like. I'll take a spatula and clean the inside of this off. But this is what our dough looks like. And it's super stretchy. Like that. So even if it gets on your hands, you just kind of push into the dough and it comes off. So this stuff works beautifully. Okay, I'm going to scrape this off with a spatula on the edges just so it'll be kind of cohesive into one blob. And then I have my handy dandy hotel shower cap. We will put it over this and we're going to let this rest for 1 hour in this bowl. By that time, it will double in size, usually. And I don't even worry about it if it doesn't. If it's cooler outside or where the humidity's low, it's not going to double as quickly, but it is going to rise enough to where we're going to make our rolls, buns, whatever we're making in the end. So if you have a warm area like on the top of a water heater, that would work great. In an oven that has just been kept warm, or you don't want to put it in a hot oven by any means because it's going to start baking at that point. So don't make that mistake. I may or may not have done that before, but you're going to want to put it just in a warm atmosphere with high humidity if possible. Don't worry about the humidity if it's not there, but it just helps the rising process a little bit. But again, we're going to let this rest for an hour. That's called the rising. This is the first rising that it is taking. It'll have 2 risings once after we shape them, but this is the first rising. So we'll be back in just a bit, and just know that this is going to be covered, always cover it, and it rests for an hour. So rest for an hour and we'll be right back. Okay, it's been an hour and our dough has risen. I don't even know how much. I would say probably not, maybe doubled. I don't know. It really doesn't matter to me. I pay very little attention to that, but I always hear people talk about, and your dough will double in size. Well, maybe not. But it's a little cool today. The temperature is really cool outside, but it's not cool in my house. So, but it's just not humid in my house either. So we'll take it regardless. All right, this is probably, I think I've shown this to you before. This is probably the best 75 cents I ever spent at our local, well, pretty local. It's in North Little Rock. It's a like a restaurant supply, kitchen supply store. But not that I didn't look around for like 2.5 hours, but I was intrigued by almost everything in there. But 75 cents. I bought 2 of them. I was a big spender that day. But these are so handy. They're flexible. It's just a bench scraper, but it's plastic. I have a metal one, but mine doesn't bend. So I have used the fire out of this thing, as my Nana would say. All right, we're just going to dump this right on our counter. I cleaned my countertop off with vinegar just a bit ago. That is my cleaning product of choice, either that or rubbing alcohol. I have them both in spray bottles. but I tend to use the vinegar more simply because the smell dissipates a little quicker than the alcohol does. All right, I just want to get all of that out of the bottom of the bowl in there. You're going to need a baking sheet. I just have a stainless steel baking sheet like this, but I have a piece of parchment in it. But you don't have to use parchment, but I just think it's easier to lift things out when you have the parchment. You'll also need a rolling pin, and I have a pizza cutter too, because I'm going to show you how to make the crescent roll looking rolls too. All right, I'm going to divide this in half. I want you to see how easy this comes up. There's pretty much nothing on my countertop. All right, I'm going to divide this in half because I want to show you with half of it how to make just regular dinner rolls, and with the other half, I'm going to show you how to make crescent rolls. So we'll put this one aside. This one we'll work with. We're going to make a dozen rolls. Now, dividing dough into 3 equal segments is not near as easy as dividing it in half or in fourths. So I'm going to show you how I do that. All right, we're going to make six rolls for this side and 6 crescent rolls for that side. So I'm going to divide this in half, and then I'll divide each of these halves into thirds. And I'm just eyeballing it. So they're probably not going to be all the same size, but that's okay. Somebody will inevitably fight for that larger one. All right, so this is what I'm going to show you how to do. My hands have quite a bit of oil on them from just handling the dough. I'm taking the edges of it, pulling it up to the center, and just turning it around. So just keep turning it around, but I tend to push it down with my finger, bring it up on the sides. And I get to doing this so fast, my fingers get tired sometimes. But I just want you to see how that looks. And what I'm doing is creating a smooth surface on the part that is touching my hand. So I'll turn this around and you can see that. It's a super smooth little roll right there. I tend to put the ones that are just a tad larger, not out of I didn't intentionally make them larger, but sometimes if they're larger, if I see one that's smaller, I'll move it toward the center of the pan and put the larger one at the corners, because the corners tend to bake a little bit hotter and a little bit faster, therefore. All right, showing you this again. I'm spinning it around as I'm doing this, but pinching it together with these 2 fingers and then just pushing it down with my index finger. And we're going to do 6 of those. I'll get these done real quick since I've shown you 2 of them. This is all fun and games till somebody orders like 120, and then it gets to be a bit of a challenge. All right, we'll see if we have any larger ones and put those in the corner in just a bit. It's funny, I made rolls for an event. I guess it's been 2 weeks ago, and because the crescent roll types are just a lot quicker to make, it doesn't wear your hands out like this does. That's what I chose to do. I think I made 160 dinner rolls, but did them in the crescent roll types, and somebody came up to the table and was asking, are there any more of those crescent rolls? And it caught me off guard at first, because I thought, I do not use crescent rolls. Do not think that I use something canned bread out of something can, and that's awful. And then I thought, wait a minute, those are actually crescent roll shaped. So I was about to go all over her. Okay, our last little roll right here. All right, I want to show you what these look like. So these 2 look like they're larger ones, so I'm going to replace this one with this. You don't necessarily have to do this. It's just one of those things. I realized that the outside edge cooks a little bit faster. So, all right, we have our 6 regular ones here, like that. Oh, you can see them better in that camera than you can the other one. Okay. Now, I want to show you how to make the crescent roll type. All right, try to get your dough just in as much of a circle as you can. And we're going to roll it out pretty flat. And this is only going to make 6. If you're making a lot of rolls, like a full batch, sometimes I'll make 16 rolls out of a big one if they're just small sized dinner rolls. But normally 12 rolls is what I do. And this is how I do it when I'm making the hot dogs, the pigs in the blanket. I'll do crescent rolls like this, and then I'll roll the hot dog up into it. And I think I probably showed that on the video before. I'm just not sure, but you can refer back to the pigs in the blanket video I think we've done. At this point, I'm kind of getting confused on what I've done a video on and what I haven't. But it didn't take much for me to get to that point. Okay, not a super large circle, but just one where you can get an idea of what we're doing. All right, we're going to mark our center. Just eyeball it. And we'll need to divide this into 6 parts. So I want to make a cut straight up. And so each of these we'll need to divide into 3. So I'm just going to kind of make a mark as to where I think these need to be. That looks about right. And then I take my pizza wheel and go across the center mark to the one on the opposite side. So there we go. And I hope you can see this okay in the camera. I apologize so much for really not knowing what I'm doing as far as the camera angles. I can see it clearly, but I just don't know which way will help you to see it clearly. So just go with me on this one. We're going to take the outside edge. Like I said, this releases from the countertop super easy. Go from the outside edge and roll it toward the center. And that's your crescent roll. You always want to bake it with this little tip being down. Kind of curve them a little bit. That's, I guess, where the crescent comes in. I'm not sure. I don't even know what I'm talking about, but it looks like a crescent to me. All right, again, we're going to roll it toward the center. The tip side down and curve them a little bit. That looks like a bigger roll, so I'll put it in the corner. You can see that these go much faster than the regular dinner rolls do. Roll it toward the center. And there we go. Okay, that's what they look like. I'll show it to you on the other camera. This is what they look like. Oh, that light's so much better up there. Okay, here's what we're going to do now. Take a clean dish towel, a lint-free dish towel, and just lay it over these. We're going to put these in a draft-free spot that's warm. I'm going to place mine in my lower oven because that's just as warm as it is just about anywhere, but I can guarantee a gnat's not going to fly onto it, or, you know, something dusted and going to get on it from my house. Not that my house is dusty or anything. Of course not. But we're going to let these rise. This is our second rising. We're going to let these rise for an hour. So in an hour, we'll come back. We're going to put these in the oven. If you want to set your timer for about 55 minutes and then turn your oven on at that point, you're going to turn it on 350. So that's what I'll do as well. I'll set my timer for 55 minutes. I'll turn the oven on and preheat it, and then when we come back, we can put it directly in the oven, and then we'll finish up our rolls. So see there? Nobody's failed yet, right? Okay, let's put these to rest, and no, not rest, rise. They're rising. Okay, we'll be right back. Okay, our timer went off. I preheated the oven. Let's get our rolls out of the lower oven. I turned the light on in the lower oven just to create a sense of warmth in there, and probably some humidity because I always have bacon in the lower oven. I'm sure the humidity from that was in there. All right, this is how much our rolls have risen. They are pretty puffy, and you can see now they pretty easily take up the whole pan right there. And see how the ones on the corner are larger, and those are going to bake hotter, and we want those to be done all the way through. So we're gonna pop these in the oven. At this point, if you want to brush these with an egg mixture, that will make them shiny like a glossy, but if you don't care anything about them not being glossy, then by all means just pop them in the oven like this. If you want things like sesame seeds, poppy seeds, minced onions, things like that, if you're gonna add that to the top of them, now would be the time to brush them with your egg mixture, and that'll make them stick to the top. Otherwise, they're just gonna bounce off. So, okay, let's pop these in the oven now. All right, I just set it for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, we're gonna check and see what they look like. If they're not quite brown enough, we'll let them cook a couple of minutes more, but we'll be right back and see what they look like when they come out of the oven. Okay, we have 3 seconds left. Our rolls are done. Okay, this is what our rolls look like. These look like they're about to fly away because they look like little bird heads sticking up. And I normally try to get them tucked under like this one is. You can see this one, how it's tucked under, and these are kind of sticking up just because that little end came unraveled. But that's what our rolls look like. I wish you could smell these. Now at this point, I will tell you this, and I know you're probably gonna think I'm wackadoodle, but because these are honey rolls and they do have a flavor of honey in them, if you take them while they're warm and drizzle honey over the top of them, just brush it on there like a glaze, they taste kind of freakishly like a glazed donut. Now, I'm not a fan of glazed donuts. I don't like the bleach flour, grease, and sugar combination. Go figure. But these would be a healthy alternative to that if you're just so inclined to need a glazed donut. When these are hot, I'm telling you, honey on these tastes like a glazed donut altogether. So, I want you to know there will be at least 2 more videos. We're gonna show you something to do with these that I think you're gonna be excited about. I think you're probably gonna wanna try, and I think your friends and family whom you're gonna share them with are gonna be excited about it too. So, thank you for joining us. Again, these are honey rolls. Let me show them again to this camera. And thanks for joining us. We look forward to sharing something again with you real soon. And the recipe's in the description, so don't forget that. See ya.